Hi, this is Monica, and welcome back to my channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. And today, I'm going to tell you the story of why you should never take from somebody else's kids. Now, you don't never expect for somebody to take from you. But it's a whole nother thing to take from your kids. When I say take from your kids, I'm not talking like you supposed to protect your kids at any cost. I didn't expect for the narcissist to ever cross the line when it came to my son. Because he knew how I felt about my baby. He knew how I felt about anybody doing anything wrong when it came to my son. But this particular story took place around that time. And I'm going to tell you why I'm telling this story. I was talking to somebody earlier. And when I was talking to them, they was telling me about how their narcissist was doing stuff to them. And so when we was talking, I told her, I said, well, if you think that's something, I got a story to tell you. So I got into talking to her, and then I remembered what had happened when this MFer decided to take from my son, and I found out about it. Now, keep in mind, he had got away with a lot. When I say he got away with a lot, he got away with a lot. Now, this was around the time that he had went in my purse after I specifically told him that I was saving my money to get me a car. He went in my purse. I had went to sleep. And he went in my purse, and he took $300 out of there. When he took the $300, I didn't see him take it. I was asleep. I woke up and I was counting my money. Some said, count your money, Monica. I counted my money and I was $300 short. I went to go find him. But when I went to go find him, I asked him about it. He said he had owed somebody a debt for something a product that he had went and bought, but he messed up the money with it, and the man was on his ass about it. But at the end of the day, that didn't have anything to do with me and Curtis. But this is not what this story is about. No, this is about him blatantly taking something out of my house in order to make somebody else live a little better. Now, the women that he was messing around with, none of them like me. Not the girl across the street, not the best friend, and not Froghorn. Now, Froghorn, on the other hand, she had her own thing going. She had, like, this kid that she was taking care of that was her own, but she had a whole income for her and him. So when I say him, I'm talking about the narcissist. So I wasn't too concerned with her. The girl across the street, she had people running in and out. Her mama made sure that she had what she needed. But it was the best friend. It was the best friend for me. At the end of the day, the best friend used her mother to get close to me to find out what I had going on, B, what was going on between me and the narcissist, and C, so she could come up on what I had in my house. We're going to talk about it. Now, every month, I made arrangements with my neighbor to, when she went to the grocery store, I would go to the grocery store. Now, when I say grocery store, I'm talking about for the month, because I was a single parent. So what I did was, when I filed for public assistance, I didn't file for cash money. I applied for medical and food stamps for me and Curtis. But because I had a job, that's all I really qualified for. But that's all I needed. Because the way that I would go to the grocery at the beginning of the month, and I would make sure that I had enough groceries to last me, not just for that entire month, but the month prior to get started in the next month. So I knew what was in my house. Now, keep in mind, any mother, any kind of mother, even though you not intentionally can remember what's in your kitchen, you know what you bought. You know what kind of meat you bought. You know what kind of cereal you bought. You know what you bought. But at the end of the day, I had everything mapped out. I would pay my rent at the beginning of the month, and then whatever I had left, I would go to the dollar store, and I would get soap powders and bleach. I would get cleaning supplies. I would get Curtis a toy. I would get whatever I needed, cigarettes or whatever, a bottle or whatever. I would hide my bottle underneath my bed. But at the end of the day, this was routine for me. Even if he wasn't there, talking about the narcissist, even if he wasn't there, I made sure that I had. So when I say I had, I could make sure my baby ate, clean up my house, and then I could sit around and I could have me a drink and watch TV until the next day when I had to go to work. Not only did I make sure of that, but I made sure to count out for 2 weeks my bus fare to and from work, even though I knew that my best friend would pick me up and take me home. But we didn't work all the time together. So if she couldn't come and get me, I made sure I could catch the bus and get home. Now you don't expect for somebody that's living in your house to do you wrong. You don't expect for somebody in your house to do something so underhanded and undermined to actually kick the relationship in the rest of the toilet that was already in the garbage can, that was already need to be thrown away, that was already the wrong relationship. You don't expect for somebody to do something so wrong that you look at them like, and they not give a damn. Now, in through these stories, I have told y'all about Froghorn. I even told y'all about the little girl across the street. But what I didn't tell y'all was about the best friend. Now, the best friend, she had a daughter, but she lived in her part of the projects that she lived in. She stayed diagonal from me, but I could see her house clearly from my back door. But it just wasn't her. It was her, her mother, and her sister, and her daughter that stayed there. Now, the reason why I call her the best friend is because that's what he called her. Because this girl, even though she had a daughter, this girl would stand under the tree with them drinking Coke 45 all day. Even when I would go to work, I would come home and she was standing underneath the tree with them with like 4 cases of Coke 45. And I never understood why the people that stood there would just stand there all day. Like that was their job, just to stand in the yard and look at people, holler at people in the cars that was going past and asking for $3 to $5 so they could get some more beer. Now, she stayed diagonal from me, but her mother, her sister, and her daughter stayed over there. Now, her mother was clever. Her mother would come over to my house and she would ask me little questions like, what are you doing? This, and that. But in through the questions, I would either be cleaning up or cooking or something like this. And then that's when she would ask me, like, do you have another extra? She was like, I'm cooking. Do you have a can of corn or something like this? But by me going to the pantries and stuff, I had a whole big case, a whole big tote full of canned goods. My cabinets was full of canned goods, but the canned goods that I would get from like the pantries and stuff, I would keep them in a tote right behind my washer, on the side of my washer, in between my washer and my dryer. That's where I kept them. But she would come over periodically and she would ask me, did I have an extra can of corn or extra something. But I wasn't being selfish, so I gave it to her, knowing that she had her granddaughter over there and her daughters, her 2 daughters, her and her granddaughter. Even though I knew this, she didn't act like she didn't like me or nothing like this. She would come over and she would like sit on my porch with me and stuff like this. But little did I know that the whole time that she was sitting on my porch, she was gathering information to tell him that I said about him, her, and the girl and Froghorn. But nevertheless, if somebody is your friend or like an associate and they sit and they eat with you, why would they do that? But come to find out, you will find out like the mother was so, I don't know. She wasn't a mother type. She was standing outside. She would put on like little skimpy clothes. And on the first of the month, all of it never failed. We had a little club that was down the street from where I stayed at. And this club was called Majestics. And at Majestics, everybody on the first of the month would pile up in this hole in the wall and they would dance and they would drink and they would do whatever they did. Even her. They would wait until the baby would sleep and all 3 of them would walk. Like, who walks to the club? Everybody in the projects, because everybody in the projects between the 1st and the 15th would all meet up at the same little club, maybe about 15, 20 minutes from where I stay. Yes. Now, you could always tell when their money was getting low, because first the crowd would have like maybe about 22 of them that walked down there. Then it went from 22 to like 15. Then it went to 10. Then it went to 5. Then only 2 people will walk down there. Everybody was broke. Except for me, because I worked every day. I made sure Curtis had what he had. My apartment was nice. I had groceries in my house. I took care of me. Even though he was doing what he was doing, I still was taking care of me. Now, granted, he got away with a lot of shit, but this shit right here, I did not let it slide. He took it upon himself one day to tell me, Monica, you need to cut back on working all the time. He was like, somebody want to come home to a meal and stuff like this. Like he had a job. Like, I didn't understand that. He was complaining that I wasn't cooking because I was at work all the time. I never understood that. So the argument would be, well, you don't cook, you don't do this. Real women cook, real women do this and that. I kept my clothes clean, I kept my house clean, and I had groceries in my house. Even though whatever I had to do, I would have struggled. Like, I would do stuff like if my job had a party and had like silverware and paper plates and stuff that was left, I would gather up all the ones that were still unused. I would put them in a bag and I would take them home. Because see, I wasn't above secondhand stuff. I wasn't above trying to get out. I wasn't above, even though I had a job. If it was free, I took it. If something went on, like if we had a carry-in or something like this, everybody at my job would give me the food that was left over, and I would take it home. Even though I had all the food and stuff at my house, still, if they was going to just throw it away, why throw it away? Give it to me. I'll reheat it or whatever, mix something else with it. I made it happen. I actually turned shit into sugar. Even though I lived in the projects, I didn't live in the projects like projects. I lived in my own little world, and I took care of my baby. But nevertheless, everybody else in the projects still had a problem with that. It wasn't just me that worked. It was a couple of us that worked. But the ones that worked was the ones that was catching problems like busting out windows, breaking into houses and stuff like this. But I was never worried about that because my house was right next to the office. The people's houses that was by the office was protected. So, nevertheless, we're not going to talk about that. But, excuse me, I've been drinking. This lady across the street, she was so manipulative. She would say stuff like she didn't have no soap powders. She would come over with a styrofoam cup and I would give her some of my soap powders to take care of the laundry and stuff that she had. But keep in mind, even though I had a dryer, I was hanging my clothes on the line that had. Now, because they kicked it all the time, the mother one day came over to my house. She was like, Monica, she was like, I don't know how this happened. She said she missed her appointment down at public assistance, so they cut her food stamps off. And I asked her, I said, why did they sanction you? She was like, because I missed my appointment. I said, so when do you get another appointment? She said, like going towards the end of the month. She was like, but I don't know how I'm going to feed my family. Now, keep in mind, she would cook, but she would cook a whole lot. Like, she would cook, like, if you made one meal, she'll make, like, that day, 2 separate meals, full meals. But because her food stamps had ran out and she had got sanctioned, she didn't have as much food in her house. So when I came home one day, she knocked on my door and she was like, Monica, I just fried up the last stuff, the last chicken that I had at home. I said, you got any other meat? I said, you got any other meat at your house? She was like, yeah. She's like, I got a couple of packs. But remember, I told y'all, I will measure my stuff out. So the meat that I had left from the month prior to was still new. So what I did was I gave her a couple of packs of chicken, some hamburgers, some sausage, and probably some hot dogs or something like this. She told me thank you. Now this is the reason why I trusted her. This was the reason why I thought she was like genuine. Plus she was a mother. And so I would think one mother to another mother, you wouldn't try to F over nobody, but of course she did. Of course she did. Because when I had started finding out about all the people that he was messing with in the projects, she would come back to me and be like, oh yeah, he messing with such and such. I been knew that, but Monica, I didn't want to get in nobody's business. I didn't want to be in the middle of y'all stuff. I'm like, well, you could have still told me if you knew. Why didn't you just tell me? She was like, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Plus, you got a lot on your plate. I don't got a lot on my plate. All I do is work and come home and take care of my son. So what is the lot that I got on my plate? She just kept saying, you got a lot on your plate, you got a lot on your plate. She was like, but when you find out something, it's really going to hurt your feelings. She kept saying it. Like, it's something else you need to find out. She was like, but I am not going to be the one to tell you. I'm like, okay, but why would you not tell me? She was like, well, I'm not going to tell you and this, that, and the third. So she kind of left it alone. But with anything, if somebody tell you something that they know, they tell you, I know something. and don't tell you the full story, that's going to make you constantly think about it. So I went and I asked him, like, is there something that she need to tell me? He was like, no, no, you know how she is. She stay drunk. But not only do she stay drunk, she stay drunk with you. She stay drunk with y'all. Now, keep in mind, her daughter stayed around him constantly. When I say stayed around him constantly, where you see her, you see him. Where you see him, you seen her. So at the end of the day, this is why he called her the best friend. Now, this one particular day, I had got off the bus and I had stopped at the corner store and I got me like 2 wine coolers. I already had a bottle underneath my bed for me. Now, because he didn't clean up or nothing like this, he never knew that. I always make my bed. I always made my bed. So on my side of the bed, I made sure that my bottle stayed there. And I pushed it all the way back so couldn't nobody see it. Not only could he see it, but Curtis' crazy self couldn't see it either. But nevertheless, I came home one day and both of her daughters was in front of the yard fighting each other. I mean, when I say fighting each other, they is going at it. They not just going at it a little bit, they going at it a lot. Now, what was stood out about this, the narcissist was sitting on their porch watching them fight. Not only was it him, but it was all 4 of his little cronies that he had with him. They sat there and didn't break the fight up. They let these sisters fight. Now, because the older sister of the best friend was fighting her, the fight got broke up some type of way. So a couple of hours went past. The older sister knocked on my screen door. I had my front door open and my back door open. I was letting like the summer breeze come through. I'm chilling. I'm watching TV. I got the living room light off. All you could really see was the TV. But she knocked on my door. When she knocked on my door, she walked in. She was like, Monica, I need to talk to you. When she said, I need to talk to you, that's when I seen her mother come running across the street. And when she ran across the street, the oldest daughter started talking to me. The mother was trying to stop her from telling me what they was fighting over. But it was a little too late because she had already got it out that they were fighting over the narcissist. This is what happened. The narcissist apparently had spent the night over to the lady diagonal that I gave the food to. He had spent the night over there with the oldest sister. Now, but I stopped talking to all of them after that. She turned and she ran out. She ran away from my porch and I never spoke to her again. But my mother always told me that karma always comes, not when you want her to, but when they need to get there. Now, maybe about 4 months passed after this and I still wasn't speaking to them. Children's Services came in and they had a Children's Services case over there. But the one daughter, she got pregnant and she got pregnant by one of his friends. And she had a baby and she moved out the projects altogether. Now, him and his best friend, I took his stuff to her house and left it on the porch because his friends that stayed underneath the tree because he didn't have no money told everybody that he had actually moved in with the best friend. So when he moved in with the best friend, the girl that was across the street, when the other daughter was telling me that she was sleeping with the narcissist and the sister caught them sleeping together, she also told me that they wasn't just best friends, that they were messing around. But the mother walked in my screen door while the daughter was telling me this story. She walked in and she was like, you get out of here trying to start trouble. That's your family. You don't bring other people into your business. Now, keep in mind, I had gave her some food prior to, like a week before all this had happened. I gave her food out of my refrigerator. But that wasn't the killer part. The killer part was when she escorted her daughter to the door. She turned around and she started laughing. She was like, if you think they fighting, wait till you find out what was really going on. Now, I really didn't pay no attention what she was talking about because I knew she was mad at her daughter for telling me that the narcissist and the best friend was sleeping together. But when I confronted him about it, of course, it was, Monica, she lying, she stayed drunk and all this other stuff. But you stayed drunk with her. They was drinking together. Not just him and the best friend, but him, the best friend, the sister, and the mother was all standing underneath the tree drinking. So not only was he sleeping with the two sisters, but he was sleeping with the girl that was next to the tree, and he was sleeping with Farcorn. He had that was community penis. That was society's penis. He was honestly everybody that was underneath that tree knew that he was sleeping with all of them, but the sisters didn't find out until that day that he spent the night over there. Now, when I say he spent the night over there, he hadn't been to my house. I would see him across the street, but he would never speak to me. I wouldn't speak to him because I thought he was devoted to Foghorn. But little did I know that the girls that was staying in them apartments diagonal from me, he was sleeping with both of them. But the mother knew that they both were sleeping with him, and she didn't say nothing. She just kept on with the cap on. She just kept on with the cap on. So back to my groceries. Me and my best friend had noticed that food was coming up missing out of my freezer. And when the food was coming up missing out of my freezer, I would ask him, like, did you see such and such and so in my refrigerator? First, it was a box of cereal. Curtis wasn't big on cereal, but I would keep cereal in my house because either if he wanted a snack or something like this, I could put it in a Ziploc bag and give it to him, and he could go across the street and he could play. But nevertheless, the cereal came up missing. When the cereal came up missing, eggs came up missing. Now keep in mind, me and my best friend was counting my groceries because I was going to work. Now, because my best friend had took me to the grocery store, this is what she done. She took a regular permanent marker and she marked my food and the box of cereal that was on my refrigerator. I took a picture of everything that was in my freezer and my refrigerator. Now, the canned goods and dry goods and stuff like this, I couldn't really tell because I still was going to the pantry. So when I went to the pantry, that means I had boxes of Jiffy. I had like extra cans of corn, green beans, and stuff like this. Plus, I had like pinto beans and stuff like this. But I also marked the pinto beans. The reason why I marked the pinto beans is because everybody cooked beans. My best friend took it up on herself to start marking everything. She marked it with a permanent marker. She marked it and she marked it like if it was my meat, it was 1 through whatever it was. If it was Jiffy, it was 1 through whatever it was. The pinto beans even had a number on it. But he was so stupid. He was not paying attention to the food that had the markings on it. He never looked at the bottom of the food. He would just give them shit out of my house and think this was okay. But he never knew I marked it. Neither did she. So this particular day, me and my best friend had played hooky. We didn't go to work that day. We went to the Dayton Mall. Went to the Dayton Mall. We was looking around and stuff like this. But nevertheless, it was a girl's day. So when she dropped me off at home, she pulled up in the front. I got out the car and I walked straight in my house because my front door was open. When my front door was open, when I walked in, he was sitting on one couch and the lady across the street was sitting on the other couch. But she had one of those grocery bags, those little plastic bags with her, and it had food in it. But I was looking to see if I could see what's in the bag. She grabbed the bag and she tied it up. When she tied it up, she walked out of the house and she ran out the door. When she went out the door, she said, Monica, she said, I had just went to the store and went and got this stuff. She was like, I don't even know why you got that look on your face. I turned to him and I said, well, why do you have her in my house and I'm not at home? But why, most of all, why are you here? He was like, Monica, I just came over here for a second and this. If you don't want me in your house, I ain't got to be in your house. He left out the door right after she did. Now, a couple of hours went past, and so I kept thinking about the bag that she had in her hand. Now, I wasn't thinking like it was my groceries completely, but I knew something in that bag was mine because why would you tie the bag up? So what I did was I waited to the evening time when everybody that cooked, everybody that ate, and everybody's trash is still sitting in their kitchen. So I went across the street. When I went across the street, I knocked on her door to ask her, could I borrow something? I can't remember what I asked her to borrow. So when I walked in her house, she was talking and she was sweeping her living room out and this and that and the third. But you know, if it's the evening time, either you're doing two things. You watching TV or you cleaning up for the night. Now, granted, she did keep her house semi-clean, not, just enough to be presentable. But she nevertheless was cleaning up her house. I asked her, could I borrow something? So that meant I was following her to her kitchen. When I followed her to her kitchen, I noticed her trash. Her trash was by the back door. When I walked closer to the back door, I seen a pack of meat, but I didn't see the meat. I seen the package. And you know how your meat has that styrofoam thing on the bottom? That's what my best friend marked. So when I looked in her trash, nevertheless, what did I see? I saw a pack of meat that had been used with my best friend's marking on the bottom with a number on the bottom of it. When I turned to her, she noticed me looking. When she turned around, I asked her, I said, where did you get that meat from? She was like, what are you talking about? I went to the store and got it. I said, you couldn't have. Because the number on that meat is the opposite number of the meat that's at my house. I said, that meat came out of my house. That's when she was like, Monica, wait a minute. She was like, I didn't have anything to cook. So he went over there in your refrigerator. I didn't think you would mind. He went over in your refrigerator and gave me some meat so I could cook for us. I said, but that's not his stuff to give away. I said, he was giving you groceries out of my house. She was like, Monica, he only did it a couple of times. By this time, he heard me and her starting to exchange words about my groceries being in her house. My whole thing with that is, even if that was true, you should have asked me. You shouldn't have got it from him. He didn't pay for nothing. That food was for my baby. So to me, what you done was you was taking from my son. And that changed the game for her. Not only did I cuss her out and I cussed him out, I cussed everybody in that house out. Now, after I cussed him out, I slammed her door and walked out. Now, from that point on, nothing came up missing out of my house because everybody in the projects knew that I had marked my stuff. Now, they was calling me Patty and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, all I could see was that you was taken from my son. So when I asked him about it, of course he denied the whole thing. He denied it. Even though I had seen it for myself, he still denied it like I was stupid. But maybe like a month went past. We stopped speaking at it after that. Me, her two daughters was not speaking. I could walk past them like I didn't even know them. Because at the end of the day, you a mother like me. And if you took from my son... Now, these women was vindictive. When I say they was vindictive, I watched them jump this guy with some table legs because his girlfriend had confronted one of them at the store. So I knew that they was dirty. So once I figured out that she was getting food out of my house without my permission from him, I stopped talking to all them. So they would see me walk past or get out the car or something like this. And you know how people talk loud. She was talking loud like, motherfuckers hold grudges and this, that, and the third. They hold grudges or whatever. They childish. They being childish about stuff. It was just this, that, and other. She was talking loud. The mother was. But at the end of the day, I wasn't getting ready to entertain it. You knew you was busted. You knew you was wrong. So maybe just like I said, a month had went past. Me and her never spoke. Me and her kids never spoke. I was sitting on my porch. And when I was sitting on my porch, I heard her screen door close. When I heard her screen door close, I heard somebody walking up on the side of my apartment. When she was walking up on the side of my apartment, she approached me like, can I talk to you? And I'm like, yeah. She was like, did you notice that my girls is not living with me anymore? No, because why would I even think was worried about your business? That's your business, girl. You know what I'm saying? But no, nevertheless, she let it out that both of her daughters had got separate apartments in the same project. So the mother stayed in the apartment that was diagonal from me, and her two daughters were scattered somewhere in the projects, in the same projects. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. She turned to me and she was like, remember when I told you I had something that I needed to tell you and this and that and the other? She was like, since you being petty about the food. She was like, Monica, she was like, yeah, both of my daughters is wrong for fighting over him and this, that, and the third, and this and this. She was like, but nevertheless, I put both of them out. And I'm still looking at her confused. The reason why she put both of them out, because he was sleeping with her too. Yes, he was sleeping with her too. And she told me, she was like, they just mad because they found out that I'm screwing him too. You know what I'm saying? But she's talking to me about a man that was supposed to be like in a relationship with me. She's telling me that not only is her daughter sleeping with him, but she was also. Girl, it is a lot. It's a lot to this part of the story because the mother to me was wrong the whole time. How are you sleeping with somebody that's your daughter's them age, but you sleeping with them knowing that he's sleeping with both of your daughters? This is the kind of nonsense that I had to put up with in these projects. Now, keep in mind, the narcissist was still messing with Froghorn. When I say he was messing with her, he would wait till the best friend, I guess, went to sleep and sneak out her back door and run down the hill and sleep with the narcissist. I mean, sleep with Froghorn. But nevertheless, Froghorn caught on to he was living with the best friend. Her and her sisters went to this girl's house and they fought her. They fought her to the point they jumped her. When they jumped her, I felt like that still wasn't my business. But at the end of the day, the narcissist still, after they jumped her, he still denied her. He denied the mother and he denied the sister. But everybody in the projects knew that he was sleeping with all of them. He wasn't just sleeping with them. It was a numerous amount of people that he was sleeping with. Now this part of this story, I can't finish it today, but as I go through it, I'll make some more videos about it. So I totally wanted to tell this story because he took out of my house to feed a female that he was sleeping with. He took food to feed them, but he was feeding them and ucking them too, okay? So at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one because he thought that to this day, if I was to ask, like, why did you do that? He would still deny that he did it. But the meat is what gave it away. You didn't just take from me, you took from my baby. And if you are a real mother, you know you would rather eat crap and die before you sit up and let somebody take from your kids. That's when I know that he wasn't shit. So at the end of the day, that I think sealed the deal with me getting away from him.